Today we're going to be doing dot plots. It's lesson 10.4 in your book. And as we're moving into these graphs, you can't forget what we've learned about mean, median, mode, range, interquartiles, all of that. That's going to be applied onto these graphs, as well as we're adding some more to it. So as always, if you need to, refer back to your notes. So the first graph we're going to be dealing with is a dot plot. And a dot plot is a visual display of a distribution of data values where each data is shown as a dot or another mark. Sometimes you'll see it as a dot, sometimes you'll see it as an X. Those are the two common ones. A dot plot is also known as a line plot. So this problem says 6th graders kept a record of how many times they called one of their first cousins on the phone. Here are the results. So those things you play games on, you actually can call people on them. Those called a phone. So anyway, here's the numbers. So it asks us, the first thing is to record the results on the dot plot. So every time I see a number, I'm going to put a dot where that number is. The hard thing to do with this is as you're doing it, you need to make sure that your rows are staying in order. You don't want to have it all bunched up on one and spread out on the other. It should be all across even. So sometimes people draw lines in like this. And so the reason I did that is so that when I place a dot in there, it will be in alignment, because you don't want to get, the whole point about graphs is you can visually see what's going on with the information. So we're going to go through and we're going to do a dot where we have a piece of information. So I'm going to switch colors here so I'm not still in purple. All right, so I have one at 2. I have one at 0. I have another one at 2. I have one at 1. 1, 3, 4, 2 at 2, etc. All right, so as you go through and enter your plots from your dot plot, can you see why it's important to keep the rows even as you go? Because you need them all to be comparable. So when it asks us how many students made at least one phone call to a first cousin, what can we say? When we look at our information, this amount is 0 phone calls. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 number of phone calls. So when it says at least one phone call, that is every piece of information from this 1 onwards. So we just have to count the dots at that point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So we can write 19 students. All right, now look at number 3. It says determine the median, the mode, the range, and any outliers shown in the dot plot. So we have a couple of choices. You can go back and put the numbers again in order from least to greatest, or you can use the dot plot, and I'll show you how to do that. So to find the median using the dot plot, you have to know how to count it. From this end, we're going to be coming down each row. From the smaller end, we're going to be going up each column. And when we meet in the middle, that is the median. So when I also can count and see how many pieces of numbers I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, I know I have 19 from there. 20, 21. So that's going to give me an idea about I should be about 10 for the median. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm thinking that one's the median. Let's count from this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, that guy right here is the median. So the median is number 2. Okay, the mode should be real easy for you to figure out. It's the one that's used the most. So again, the mode in this case is 2 also, because that is the one where I have the most pieces of data. So the range, if you remember, the range is my largest number, 6 minus 0. Well, 6 minus 0 is 6, so my range is 6. So in order to get the outliers, I have to figure out what my Q1, Q3, and the IQR are. So the Q1 would be the middle of this bottom set, and so there's 10 in that bottom set. So that tells me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My Q1 is going to be 1 because 1 plus 1 is 2 divided by 2 is 1. So my Q3, I need to go to the fifth one and see what that's going on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, there. 4, 5. So my Q3 here is 3. That's a coincidence. And so the interquartile range is 2. So to find the outliers, we have to take that IQR and we need to multiply it by 1.5. So 2 times 1.5 equals 3.0. So from Q1, we're going to subtract. So we have 1. We're going to subtract 3, and we have a negative 2. From our Q3, we're going to add 3, and we have a 6. So that means anything past 6 is an outlier. Anything less than negative 2 is an outlier. So in this case, all of our numbers fit between it. So their outliers is none. This problem says dot plot shows the number of magazines sold, determine the median, the mode, the range, and any outliers of the data, then describe the center and spread of the distribution using them. So step 1 is I like to count the number of pieces of data I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That lets me know that 7 is going to be the middle, or actually between 7 and 8 is going to be the middle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So right there. And so if I count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, right there is the middle. And because they're both the same numbers, that means the median is 20. And I always like to put a little check mark that I've done that. Mode is the one that is used the most. You can pretty much see which one that is. That is 20 also. All right. The range is where I take the highest number, which is 25, and subtract the lowest number, which is 17. The range in this case will be 8. Okay. So any outliers. So what that means is right there I know is the median. So that means I have to divide these pieces in half to find my Q1. Come on, pen. There we go. So I know that each half is 7 because it was 14 pieces of data. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That means I'm going to have 3, 3, and that one right there is my Q1. So my Q1 is 20. And so let's do that for Q3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So right there is my median. And so that one is 23. So I need to go back and add that 0. So the IQR is 23 minus 20 is 3. So I take the IQR and I multiply it by 1.5. And when I do that, I get 4.5. Okay, so now that I have that, I subtract 4.5 from 20, So please remember, when you do that, you have to align decimals. And when I do that, I have 15.5. So that means anything here would be an outlier. And so then I take 23 and I add 4.5 to it. Again, align your decimals. And that means anything here would be an outlier. And so the outliers on this one are none. Now, we're not done because we still have to describe it. Okay, it now says to then describe the center and the spread of distribution using these pieces of information. That's what "then" means. So I went ahead and typed it. So the first thing, all we're going to be doing is talking about what we did when we did these numbers. And we found that there are 14 numbers represented on the dot plot. And the median, the middle, is 20. So that means that half of the students, because remember, the median is the physical center, half of the students sold more than 20 magazines and half sold less than 20 magazines. The mode is 20, which means that more members sold 20 magazines than any other amount. So we can also know that the range is 8 and there are no outliers, which also means that the least number of magazines sold was 17 and the highest was 25. So this is really just putting into sentences what we've talked about. Just remember that the center is the mean, median, mode. The spread is how far from it goes. And so when it's talking about describing it, it's really all that stuff we did, just putting into sentences. So please pause and write these words down so that you'll have a great example of how to do it. And here's the star problem for you. It says that the dot plot shows the number of chess games won by each of the 20 students in the competition. And then it asks you which statement about the data is true. And it talks about median and interquartile range. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out what our median is. So we know that it has 20 pieces, so we know half of it is 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So since it's an even one, it's going to be right there. So we know the median, because we have to average those two, and they're both 4, so the median is equal to 4. So let's look. That immediately eliminates 2 answers. So now we're talking about the interquartile range. And so to do that, we need to know what our Q1 is, our Q3, and then we can find the IQR. So that means 10 pieces on each side. So what we have here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this one is going to be between this number and that number. So I do need to do the math. I need to do 3 plus 1 divided by 2. Well, you can see that that's 4 divided by 2, which should be 2. So my Q1 is 2. Let's look at this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my IQR, Q3 is right there. The average of them would both be the same number. And so when I subtract 7 from 2, I find that my IQR is 5. So there we go. That is the right answer. But do you see how you would be doing this on STAR? All right. So make sure you're asking any questions that you need so that you can understand this concept.